Hi, this is Justine from Two Lucky Cats, and I'm going to tell you how to make the Happy Cat Face Clock. If you haven't worked with paper mache before, you might want to watch two other videos that we've made. One is about the basic techniques of paper mache, and I've revised some of the techniques that are a little bit different than the traditional ones. The other video talks about the materials you have to choose from, and the pros and cons of each type, so you can make a choice about which is best for you. So if you haven't done so already, go to our website, www.twoluckycats.com, and download the pattern for the cat face. I just want to give you two little tips about cutting out the pieces, and one is for the number 6 and the number 9, which are the same. When you're cutting it out, just cut through here to cut out this little circle, because once you glue it, you won't see that little cut. And the other thing is, when you have something like a face, if you have two eyes, normally they're not exactly the same on both sides. And this side, the cat eye, comes to a little point. So to trace it, you want to cut out or trace the pattern on one side and then turn it over and trace it on the other side. So you have one cat eye going this way and the other one going the other way, like it is in nature. And do the same with the ear inserts and the pupils for the eyes. So the first thing you want to do is cut out two pieces of cardboard that are 11 inches by 11 inches. And because this is just a flat surface, it's okay to use cardboard. Now, I like to find a piece of cardboard and start from the edge, because that means I only have to cut out two pieces, or two sides. So just take your ruler and, start out from the one side and find 11 inches and make 3 dots, and then draw your line and do the same thing for the other side. And then you can use either an X-Acto knife or a utility knife to cut out the other two sides. When you have your two pieces, just spread some glue between the two pieces, like you're making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and put them together, and then put them aside, put some heavy weights on top, like books or bricks or something, just to make sure that all the surfaces are glued down. When the pieces are glued together, then you can put your first layer of paper on. And this is the paper that I am using for the first layer. You want to rip the paper. If you cut the paper, then you're going to have all these straight edges in the paper on top of your final design. And this layer, it doesn't really matter too much, because you won't see it anyway. You're going to cover it with another layer of paper. But when you do the next layer, you want to make sure that all the edges are ripped. So when I put the paper on, you can use white glue, 3 parts glue to 1 part water for your glue mixture. And I take my fingers and put it in the glue and just spread it on both sides of the piece of paper. And then I start on the edges, and I just, spread some glue, make sure it's all down, and put it on the edges, and then around, and then if it's on the edge, I put it around like that, and just go all the way around the edge of the cardboard. And then you want to make sure you overlap the paper. When I have all the edges done, then I'll come back and I'll fill in the interior, and just, again, put glue on both sides and spread it down and smooth everything out. So I'll do one side, and then I'll let it dry just a little bit so it's not quite so tacky. And then I'll put wax paper on top of it, so you can put books on top, and the glue isn't going to stick to the books or whatever heavy weight you put on to put it down. And the reason I'm doing this is because cardboard can have the tendency to warp. So if you put a heavy weight on top of it every time you do a side, it will reduce the chances that the cardboard will warp. So do the one side, let it dry, and then do the other side and do the same thing. Put it under some books. Once that's dry, you can do your next layer. And what I found, traditionally with paper mache, after you have your final layer of paper on, you paint it, and then you paint designs and decorations on it. And I just felt that you got a better result if you use colored paper. Plus, you don't have to use paints. And to me, it's a lot easier to use and a lot less messy to do the last layer with some kind of colored paper. And I think you get a better result if you cut the designs out of paper and glue it on than if you try to paint a design. So anyway, the next layer that we're going to use will be our final layer, and we're going to use colored paper. Just tear it out like we did the first layer, and do the same thing. Start around the edges and do all around, and then do the inside, let it dry. Do the same thing with the other side. When that's all dry, you're ready to glue your pieces on, the clock face onto the background. Now, I'm going to show you how to put all these pieces on so everything's centered and you don't have to do a lot of measuring. So the first thing you want to do is put the clock face in the center, and then take your ruler and just measure up 2 inches, and then this should be 2 inches in this direction. And then on the sides, you want to measure from the fattest part of the face and make that about, oops, here we go, about 1.5 inches, and then measure over here, and that's about 1.5 inches. So you have the face centered. Now, the first thing you want to do is glue the face down. So get a brush, something like this, and use your mixture of 3 parts glue and 1 part water. You can use Elmer's glue or some kind of white glue. And lift up the face and just start brushing the glue underneath it. So it's, you can kind of see how far it's going to go. And then once you have it down, just brush the glue like this. If you have a heavier weight paper, you don't have to worry that much about it wrinkling. But if you use a thinner paper, you might, just want to brush it, keep brushing it to try to make sure. Sometimes you can lift it up and put it back down again. But if the paper's real thin, it might tear. So try to do the best you can just to brush it and make sure you don't have any wrinkles in it. Now when you get that glued down pretty good, just lift up the ear and do the same thing with the ear and brush it down and all around the edges, and then you can do the other side. Do the same thing. Once you have the head secured, you want to start by putting on the 6 at the bottom. So since this is 11 inches, 5.5 inches here is the midpoint. So you're going to want to put the 6 on right between there. Line it up in between the 5 and the 6. So just brush on the glue, and then, let me see, where in the heck is my 6? Here it is. Doesn't want to cooperate. Okay. Now, right here, 5 and 6, put it right here. And then, first brush some glue down and brush over it. And then we're going to take the tongue. And since this is in the center, we can just line the tongue up right on top of this. So just, brush glue underneath, position your tongue down, and then brush glue on the top. The next thing we're going to want to do is, well, before we go any further, I would put all the rest of the numbers on. And you do that the same way. You just go around here and you find out the 5.5. So you can just put your 3, like in between the 5 and the 6, and then do that for the other 2. Except for the 12, you just have to fit that in between these 2 ears. So you really don't have to worry about measuring. And if this is a little big, you can just overlap it or trim it off or whatever you want. So once we get those on, we'll go back here. Once you have the tongue, which goes right over the 6, you want to put the cheeks on. And just put glue on the other side and put just a little bit here. So if you get it in the wrong spot, it'll be easier to pick it up, and it'll be easier to handle it if you don't have glue all over the place. Alright, and glue that down right over the point on the end of the tongue, and then you could just lift up each side, put glue underneath it, and then, you know, put glue on top and brush it down, and do both sides. Then we're ready to put on our nose, and that lines up right like that. So put that on the same way. Then you could just put your ears on, the inside of the ears like this, same way we've done everything else. Oop, I think I got them backwards here. There we go. And now we're going to put it on the eyes. So this little point will go to the outside of the cat. So just kind of position it like this, in between this point and that. And then put your other eye down. And then you can just put more glue on and put the pupil on. And somewhere here I should have another pupil, but I can't seem to find it. So you get the idea. You put the other pupil down. Once you have all the pieces on, you want to let it dry. And again, if you want, you can put it under a weight to make sure it doesn't warp. And then, you don't absolutely have to, but I do think it would be a good idea to put a coat of polyurethane on it to protect it. And it'd be easier to dust it later if you give it a coat of polyurethane. Let that dry, and then you want to take a permanent marker and just draw little eyelashes around the top of each eye, and then draw 3 whiskers out from the side of the nose. So the last thing that we want to do is put a hole here in the middle of the cat's nose, and we're going to insert the clock movement up through that hole. So since we're going to do other clock projects, we made that a separate video, so you don't have to watch it over and over again if you already know how to do that. So the way I put the hole in is I use a Phillips screwdriver, and I just start making the hole, making it go down from the top down through the bottom, and making it the hole larger so the shaft of the movement will come up through this hole. I hope you enjoy doing this project, and I hope you'll come back and see us soon, because we have a lot of other projects to share with you at www.twoluckycats.com.